Melania's weird letter to Putin. Trump calling himself daddy. What do these have in common? I'll explain the weird sexual politics of MAGA. I'm Amanda Marcotte. Welcome to Standing Room Only. MAGA never stops coming up with ways to gross us out, and they did it again with Donald Trump's recent peace negotiations with Russia. First Lady Melania Trump had to make it weird by writing a letter to Russian President Vladimir Putin about how some children are forced to carry a quiet laughter. What does that mean? Honestly, the whole thing reminded me of another bit of MAGA strangeness when it comes to foreign relations. Earlier this summer, NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte called Trump daddy.
And then daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
Bear with me because I know that you want to get back to Melania. But let's talk about this daddy Trump thing a little bit. I think Rutte was trying to flatter Trump, but it really stuck because it plugs into this whole thing where MAGA really does like calling Trump daddy.
A lot of people in America have come to think of President Trump as a sort of father figure. We could have a little bit of recognition of like Daddy Trump.
The Republican Party is back to being the daddy party.
You can now officially call him daddy. Make room for daddy.
Daddy's back.
There is no closer in American politics like Big Daddy Don.
They just really like calling him daddy. The official White House account even posted a video of Trump at the NATO summit set to Daddy's Home by Usher. Thankfully, he copyright claimed it and they took it down. No one has copyright claimed something faster than Usher. The daddy thing started last October when Tucker Carlson gave his Daddy's Home speech at a Georgia campaign rally.
There has to be a point at which Dad comes home. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed. And when Dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. And no, it's not gonna hurt me more than it hurts you. No, it's not.
I regret to inform you that Tucker has 3 daughters. Luckily, they're all out of the house now. But Trump is gross to his eldest daughter and MAGA doesn't seem to mind. They like seeing Trump as the abusive daddy spanking naughty Americans who they imagine as liberals, feminists, queer people, and racial minorities.
I'm glad Trump's here at the moment. You know, it's like daddy arrived and he's taking his belt off, you know.
If you stab daddy in the back, you're getting more than a spanking.
She could get a personalized bunker buster from Daddy Trump if she's not really careful.
You are beautiful and you're beautiful inside.
Soon Africa will be calling him daddy too.
They're barely hiding that this is about sex. And MAGA may want to deny that Carlson's speech was overtly sexual, even though, let's face it, it was giving strong Jeffrey Epstein vibes. But the use of the Usher song removes all doubt. That song is about sex, granted between consenting adults. The daddy talk in MAGA isn't just bizarre. It's very much not about consent. The whole point of the daddy nickname is to celebrate force and domination. I mean, they follow a leader who bragged about grabbing women by the genitals, and then a civil jury found that he did just that to journalist E. Jean Carroll. I'll be speaking about this more and pass the mic with my guest, Lux Alptraum. So yes, it's a weird sex thing, but Tucker's fantasy of a large man beating a small girl shows how much this daddy thing is a fascist image. Fascism is a vehicle for weak, insecure people to feel powerful in the most cowardly way possible by violating and abusing those they believe can't fight back. No wonder Trump is a perfect avatar for it. This is where Melania comes in. Most right-wingers don't want to think of themselves as total monsters, even as they idolize a daddy who is unapologetically abusive and devoid of empathy. That's where the counterpoint of mommy comes in. Mommy will wipe up your tears and bandage your cuts after daddy beats you, but she will never ever turn her back on daddy. So gross. Mommy is submissive and loyal. Mommy's here to reassure you that daddy has a good heart underneath all that violence.
Tapes will come out. People won't want to go against him. But my husband is real. He's raw. He tells it as it is. He's kind. He's a gentleman. He supports everybody. He supports women. He apologized I accept his apology. I hope the American people will accept it well. Sometimes I said, I have 2 boys at home. I have my young son and I have my husband.
Daddy doesn't need to have a heart because mommy's love and compassion will compensate for what daddy lacks. And while you and I will roll our eyes, the role of mommy is being played by none other than Melania Trump. That's what her whole letter to Putin was about. You know, the one she brought to the Alaska summit, asking him to stop this ongoing war in Ukraine? The one that says things like, every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart, whether born randomly into a nation's rustic countryside or a magnificent city center. Or each generation's descendants begin their lives with a purity and innocence which stands above government, geography, ideology. And that's why people think ChatGPT wrote it. I don't really think that letter was for Putin. That's why it was written in English and not Russian. I think that letter was for the MAGA audience, which was why it was immediately leaked to Fox News and posted on True Social. It's all about creating this image of Melania as Mother Teresa, but you know, in a push-up bra and with a Botox administrator on standby.
Well, my passion is the same, helping children and helping women. The country needs to unite, and I encourage everybody to read my letter that I wrote on July 14. I have students from a foster community that I sponsor, and I'm very proud of.
So, Melania, you got the new season of your ornaments coming out, and this is how you pay for some of these kids' colleges as well.
They're beautiful.
Tell us about it.
And we have also a necklace that is available on melaniatrump.com.
Beautiful. Fact check. In the research for this episode, we looked into the rankings of every First Lady's works and found that Melania Trump's is consistently found as the most ineffective and basically worthless. And part of the reason is she did none of this stuff. She has never shown any real-world compassion. But she's female, so MAGA projects their trad wife fantasies onto her. And yep, this worked. I went on True Social to look at the replies to the Melania letter. It was a lot of MAGA people congratulating themselves on what good Christians they are. They swooned over how wonderful the First Lady is, and her imaginary softness makes Trump look tough in comparison. The man cheats at golf. But really, all this reveals is weakness and insecurity. Daddy Trump doesn't take on grown men like Vladimir Putin. Daddy Trump goes after vulnerable people. The daddy fantasy is a grown man beating a small girl. The real-world version of this is Trump sending ICE and the National Guard after immigrants and homeless people, or letting Putin kidnap and kill Ukrainian children. Worse, conservatives justify all this cruelty to themselves by hiding behind women and their trad wife fantasies. They tell themselves it's okay if daddy is mean because mommy is there to make everything better. Of course, mommy has no real power, and if it's Melania, it appears she's letting ChatGPT do her work. Sexism has a lot of uses in the MAGA world, but we really see it in these fantasies they have of strong daddy Trump and gentle mommy Melania. You thought this was about sex, but it's about sexism. It allows them to rationalize cruelty and injustice through the lens of these blunt gender stereotypes. Of course, in the real world, Donald and Melania Trump aren't icons of these immutable gender roles. They're a couple of jackasses who are abusing their power. But Trump supporters hide that from themselves with these absurd fairy tales they should have outgrown by the time they were in kindergarten. My guest today is Lux Alptraum. She's a journalist and the author of Faking It, The Lies Women Tell About Sex and the Truths They Reveal. Welcome to Standing Room Only.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
So it's so much fun to have somebody who wrote a book about faking it and women who fake it to talk about Melania Trump.
Yes.
Well, I'm not here to discuss whether or not she fakes it with sex. But I do want to talk about like her fake compassion.
A lot of my argument about like faking it in that book is not just about fake orgasms or that, but this larger thesis that women are given this very limited definition of femininity and this like limited space to occupy to be seen as a like correct woman. And if you're not that, you get punished. So a lot of us lie and quote unquote fake it in order to pretend that we're that. And I think that that is fundamentally what you see happening with Melania, because nothing about the role that she has been unwillingly drafted into, it comes naturally to her. Like, she does not want to be a first lady. She doesn't give a shit about people. She doesn't want to do any of the things that we expect of a first lady. And so anytime she is called on to do it, she either kind of refuses or she fakes it. Like, you know, she clearly doesn't care about people, but sometimes she has to pretend to.
Her alimony depends on it.
Exactly. I mean, and it's still like shocking to me that she is still in this marriage. I thought they were going to get divorced after he lost the first time, but she stuck around for some reason and now has to do this again.
I assume he has an ironclad prenup.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be something where like she's only going to be released on death. But whose death, can't say. And, you know, the first time around, people felt bad for her because there was this like, oh, she clearly doesn't want to do this. She clearly hates him. She clearly this. But she is also willingly a part of this, which I think is interesting. I think there's like the tension there is very interesting because she doesn't want to do this, but it seems like for her, not doing it or leaving is somehow worse. So there is some carrot there that she is after. And in order to get the carrot, she has to keep pretending to be something that is so utterly not her.
Very clear. We do not pity Melania Trump on this show. But I do find myself incredibly entertained by how much she just phones it in.
Yeah.
Like this letter to Putin, like everyone's like, AI wrote that. I think AI writes most of her letters.
So it's interesting to me, like, because, you know, I'm in my leftist bubble and we all have our various opinions on Melania and everyone's like, oh, she's so transparently fake. She's so this, she's so that. And yet I'm not totally sure what the right thinks of her because, you know, the right we've seen with these like images of Trump as this like muscle-bound god. Like there's definitely some kind of like Vaseline coating on the lens there where they're not seeing what's there. They are projecting what they want onto the person who is in power. And so I do wonder, like, what is the projection onto Melania?
We did some research for this episode, and I can say, I don't know for all of them, but a lot of memes on social media portray Melania both as the sexiest woman alive and also like this Mother Teresa figure.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can see her operating in the same sphere as the right-wing fetishization of Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, she's a perfect Aryan goddess. Like she's from like a perfectly white part of Europe, like blah, 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 all of that. Like, I can see that, and, like, yeah, there's the relationship with Barron, but it's so fascinating because it's like, I mean, I guess she does seem to care about Barron.
Yes.
So there's that.
And her parents.
But, yeah.
And nobody else.
And nobody else. Like, she seems to care about, like, her immediate family. But, like, I don't know that extends to Mother Teresa. I mean, I think she... You know, of course she's attractive in a very specific, like, Mar-a-Lago way.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just interesting to me that, yeah, they've just sort of decided, like, well, we need our president to be this incredibly powerful, strong man, and we need our first lady to be this, like, sex pot, but also Madonna. And so we've just sort of decided that that's what's going on. Like,
she's all women.
All women. She's all women.
Are all the women that women are allowed to be in their world.
Exactly. And like, to be fair, I mean, I think, you know, on the left, people do this kind of projection as well. I just think it's maybe a little more extreme on the right because there's less freedom to be something else on the right. Like, on the right, like, Donald Trump can't be fat because fat people are evil. And therefore, Donald Trump is a muscle-bound Superman. Like, what are you talking about?
So... As much as I hate to talk about Donald Trump, and I think I worry people are turning the video off, but it's a lot of this episode is also about how they call him daddy now. And I mean, you have spent some time in the world of like erotic entertainment.
Yeah.
And the word daddy can be fun. The word daddy can be like a sexy fun, but when MAGA says it just, they suck the life out of it. It's joyless. It's so literal. It's so gross. Like, why are they like this?
I mean, I think the short answer is because they're authoritarian. And what is authoritarianism but like the elevation of a father figure? Their political worldview is very much like the abusive authoritarian father. And so, I think when that's daddy, that's like disturbing because it is this worship of
but still
cruelty.
Sexual.
Yeah, there's like weirdly like sexualized worship of cruelty. Daddy can be a fraught thing. Generally, like when I see people publicly call their partners daddy, it's kind of like, maybe that's a behind closed doors thing. Like, I don't necessarily want to be drawn into your kink. That said, like, I can understand, like Pedro Pascal, like calling him daddy. Ooh, he's an older man, and like maybe he will take control a little bit, but in a fun way. And like there's like that kind of appeal of caretaking, appeal of like somebody who's older and wiser and still hot. Like I think like that's kind of like the fun like daddy. And I think that with the Donald Trump, it's like number one, like you want him to be this like abusive daddy who's gonna do terrible things. And also I don't necessarily want to know that like you're turned on by Donald Trump. That's a little bit too much for me.
It's one of the things that when we were watching the clips of all these right-wingers calling him daddy, what was so fascinating was they were all so pleased with themselves. And I think you've nailed what it is. They have roped the rest of us into their weird fantasy unwillingly. And so they're kind of paying forward that cruelty because they know it's grossing us out and they all take it.
Yeah, well, and they're not trying to persuade. Like, there's a lot of people for whom all attention is good attention. And I think we definitely see that with the right wing, where, sure, if they can get you on their side, great. But also, if they can, like, horrify you, that is also great. I don't like publicly mocking Ben Shapiro anymore because it's like he doesn't care. He just wants you talking about him. They just want a reaction because then they're like, whatever, I still win because you're talking about me.
Yeah, and there's always a piece of it, too, that's a little bit like, I'm reminded of, like, when a guy hits on you and you say no and then he calls you a bitch.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like they are so mad that liberals don't like them that it's just revenge.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a revenge mindset. And it's interesting because so much of the right-wing agenda is based on, like, belittling people and being cruel and all of that. And it's like, why would you think that this was like the winning platform? Like, why would you think, I mean, aside from the fact that, yes, Donald Trump won, but like, why would you think this is like winning hearts and minds?
Yeah.
And like, they clearly know that it's not because that's why they're so reliant on gerrymandering and voter suppression and all of that. But there is this like strange thing where they seem to want to be loved. And then when they're not, they're like, okay, I'm going to be a bully now. And it's like, but you could do things that would make people love you. You could not take away Medicaid. And like, you could make groceries not cost so much and housing not cost so much. And they don't want to do that. I mean, it's interesting because like, I'm old enough to remember other iterations of Republicans who were loathsome in their own ways, but they at least like pretended to care.
Yeah,
about,
like Bush.
Yeah, and like Romney got health care to everybody or most people in Massachusetts. Like he was like, I'm going to do it in a conservative way, but he was still like, I'm going to pretend that I care about my constituents having health care. And now it's like, we want to take health care away.
And this gets to something that I wanted to talk about, which is like, I really argued that Donald Trump is weak and that's why he behaves the way he is. He's trying to put up a front. But I think it's becoming more and more apparent that he's a bully because he's hiding his weakness. Is there a way that we can use this weakness against him? Because it's objectively true that he's a very powerful person.
I mean, I'd like to hope so. I think, the problem with bullies, the problem with abusers is that because all they want is attention, all they want is to be the center of the story, all they want is power, they will not follow any rules.
Yeah.
And we see that with this government. We see that with Trump. He doesn't follow any of the formal or informal rules. He's just like, I want to do it, therefore I can do it, and I am a president king. And, you know, I think in terms of using it against him, one of the things that's been interesting to me, autocrats who are successful don't act the way that Trump is acting. You look through dictatorships throughout history, like, or the successful dictatorships that exist now, like there is some modicum of, you know, giving meat to the people. You assure some standard of living for most people, and then crack down on the people who step out of line. And what we're seeing is like, I'm going to be an autocrat. I'm also going to make life worse for a lot of people. All of that.
And steal everything that's not like nailed down.
Yeah, and like dictatorships are actually surprisingly dependent on the public will. Like dictators, a lot of dictators are terrified because they know if the people, I think it was like Jamel Bouie said online, it's like when people know that they can vote you out in 4 years, they're more willing to tolerate bad government and all these atrocious things. But when they're like, oh, this is it, you need to keep them happy. Otherwise, there will be an uprising and potentially a coup, and you will get kicked out of power. And so he feels very much like he's like speed running, like autocracy. Like this feels like we're in like the last stages of empire, like what he's doing and all of this. And so all of which is to say, like, yes, I think we can use it against him in that like people like him are actually very dependent on being liked, not just for ego purposes, but for ruling purposes. And like, yes, I hope we vote him out because I would like to continue to live in a democracy. But I also think even if they rig the elections, they're going to turn people against them in a way that will be very ugly, I think, for all of us, but especially for the Republicans and for Trump.
I hope it doesn't get to that, but I agree with you. I still have faith in Americans.
Yeah, I mean, he's not popular. That's the thing that sort of like keeps me, gives me hope. Like, we're not seeing a lot of coverage of the protests, but there are a lot of protests. There are people who are like every weekend going out and continuing to protest. We're not happy about this. And I think that especially, I mean, he's trying to create his own like private army. That's very clear. He's trying to like turn ICE into that. Yeah. But that's largely because the American military does not want to be his private army.
I'll just add to that I think that part of the reason that that is all true with him is that he is such an obvious bully.
Yes.
And it, like, bringing it back to the daddy thing, like, that's MAGA trying to turn his weakness into a strength. Like, but most people look at him and they were like, no, I don't like bad daddy.
Yeah.
Like, abusers are bad. I think that Americans really don't like that attitude.
Yeah, people don't want a king. That's the whole point of this country.
So for the mic drop question, I'm not trying to traumatize you, but I thought it would be fun. When we're thinking about people in the MAGA universe, who do you think probably does have like an at least entertaining, even if it's weird and gross, sex life?
I think MTG, we have public evidence that MTG is very sexually libertine and probably doing some fun stuff.
And she's real strong.
Yeah, she's very strong. I suspect like a lot of, it's interesting, there's like the stereotype of like the conservative slut, and I think it's actually like true for a lot of these, like, I'm really hot conservative woman. Like, I think a lot
Nancy
of them...
Mace wants to be that.
Yeah, Nancy Mace wants to be that. I'm like, I blank on a lot of their names just because they're all such awful people. But like MTG, the other blondes, like the young hot blondes, like I'm sure they are actually probably sexually adventurous. And they come up with a whole reason as to like why it's okay, either because they're married or maybe they're not married, but it's okay because XYZ. And it's always interesting to me that those people are conservative, but I think it's partly because they feel special in a conservative space because they're like the hot white woman, because like
and it's tribal.
Yeah, and it's tribal. Like they're often racist. I think.
Well, and Lauren Boebert.
Lauren Boebert, that was the other one.
She's dating Kid Rock.
Yeah, so that's
that's gotta be weird.
I feel like that's some like Pam and Tommy Lee, like wildness.
They're like a Xerox copy of Pam and Tommy Lee like 15 times over.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, this is what happens when you like see Pam and Tommy Lee through a kaleidoscope.
But I also, as much as I both hate to think about it and I'm very curious, like what Elon Musk's sex life is like, because he both seems like he doesn't have sex because he's got his whole like artificial insemination thing, which I think is partly because he just wants sons.
Yeah.
Really rich men often like have really intense out there fetishes. I think because it's like, what else is there that's surprising in life?
I mean, artificial insemination does seem to be his out there fetish.
Yeah. Although I do think it's for sex. I mean, he's got a lot of sons.
It is.
He would not
It's a both and thing.
Yeah.
I mean, in your book, you talk a lot about how sex is both about sex and not about sex.
Very true.
All right. Well, with that, let's. I want to invite you to hype your stuff, Lux.
Yeah. So my name is Lux Alptraum. You can find me on Blue Sky at luxalptraum.com. I'm the author of Faking It: The Lies Women Tell About Sex and the Truths They Reveal. And if you want to check out podcasts I've done, I hosted both Say You're Sorry, which was an Audible original about public apologies, and the second season of Tabloid about the Pam and Tommy sex tape.
Oh, amazing. And for the kids out there, that's definitely a story that you really want to look into.
It changed the culture.
Thank you again. Lux Alptraum has been our guest today. Don't forget to stick around for Encore. We have the song recommendation of the week, which is not about daddy. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Hey folks, I'm coming to you from Latchkey in Philadelphia. It's my partner's record store. The Encore song of the week is Too Funky by George Michael. I initially wanted to do Father Figure by George Michael, considering the topic of the show. But I thought I'd go a little bit more obscure, a little bit more like B-list or like less famous George Michael songs. But especially this particular song, because this is literally one of my very favorite George Michael songs. And that's saying a lot because I love George Michael. I am obsessed with great singers, and George Michael is, of the past 100 years, one of the greatest pop singers of our entire catalog. This particular song came out in 1992. It was originally going to be released on one of his albums, but they decided instead to release it as a single on the Red Hot and Dance series. And that was a series of records that came out to raise money for AIDS awareness and healthcare services and other charity things related to AIDS at the time. A lot of great things came out on that, but Too Funky by George Michael is possibly one of the best. Great track. It is in the era where he was really kind of doing a pop version of house music. Freedom 90 is probably the most iconic example of him doing this. This song just has a really great vibe. Every time I play it when I'm DJing, people just their butts start wiggling, their shoulders start going. It's just one of the most fun little dance songs. It's not one of his most famous songs now, but it's probably nonetheless still one of his best. I always recommend checking it out. I always recommend playing it. It's always a good time. Too Funky by George Michael. If you want more Standing Room Only episodes, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Standing Room Only started as a newsletter, and it's free to read. Click the link to subscribe. I love tips. These political battles are playing out in our local communities, your family, your school, your neighborhood. If you have a story, go ahead and drop me a line, leave it in comments, and don't forget to subscribe.